I'm assuming this isn't. Oh, is this hooked up? Nice. I might just wait a couple more minutes. There's people in the hall. But yeah, how's everyone doing? First day of SciPy? Yeah. It's kind of a quiet one this year, right? I don't know if you guys, has anyone been here before? You've been once? First time? Yeah. Well, usually it's a lot busier. Like usually the rooms are like very packed. It's cool, we get an intimate setting. We can all get to know each other. Where's everyone from? Yes, from Tennessee? Cool, nice. Anyone from outside of the US?
Well, I'm originally from outside of
Where from?
Nepal.
Wow, what a journey. Cool. I'm just north of here in Vancouver, Canada. All the pictures you're going to see today are from my neighborhood, actually. Cool, well, I'll get started. So yeah, this is Hobby Drones in Urban Forests. Had to make up a fancy title, but basically what we're going to do today is just talk about how you can use drones to do some cool science. So a bit about me. This is my neighborhood when it's snowy. I come from an astrophysics background. Then I decided I was not cut out for academia, and then I left my PhD to get into software engineering, and so I live in Vancouver, and my go-to things are just biking with my kids and skiing with them, and really big into cooking too. It's my little TLDR. So today we're going to learn about a few things. We're going to go kind of basic to a little bit more complex. So we're going to start with learning about how geospatial concepts work. We're going to use Python to do geospatial analysis, and then we're going to be doing all this on real-world data from actual drone imagery. I planned to bring my drone here to show you guys, but it didn't make the trip, unfortunately. I'm biking back from here home, and it just didn't cut the weight limit, so. But you get to see this pretty schematic from Google of how a drone looks. So, why are we doing this? So, a lot of what we can do is for geospatial data is like you can use like satellite imagery or aerial imagery with airplanes. But all that stuff, which we're going to talk about later, is kind of expensive and not very helpful for a lot of reasons. So, so we can use geospatial data to do a lot of things. So we can look at high-res imagery, and we can use it really effectively at a cost-effective price. You can go out on like Facebook Marketplace and get one for like a couple $100. You can do monitoring in real time. You can just hop outside and just go take an image. And you can use this stuff for a lot of real scientific purposes, not just for pretty pictures of my backyard. So we'll get into a little bit of drone imagery now. So here's an example of a railway with 3 different methods. So on your left, you have satellite. In the middle, you have a camera mounted on an airplane, which is really common. Then on the right, you have a $500 drone. Is anyone familiar with drone imagery, by the way? Does anyone have a drone? Cool. Maybe I'll get one after today. So satellite imagery, is anyone familiar with like satellite imagery or geospatial? Yeah? Cool. Nice. I used to work at a satellite imagery company, so I was all about satellite imagery, and then now I'm not all about it. It's really expensive. It's kind of complex to task the satellites since they're stuck in an orbit. The resolution's, even though it's really impressively high for being out in outer space, it's pretty low. It's like in the meters to 10-meter range. And if you go to like commercial, more inexpensive satellite imagery, it can be in like the 30-meter range. So pretty low resolution. And then you're affected by your weather and your atmosphere. Mostly your atmosphere. A lot of the atmosphere gets in the way, and it can mess with the imagery that you read off the pixels. Similarly, aerial imagery has similar downfalls. You are not really affected by the atmosphere, which is great. But however, it's still pretty expensive and pretty low res still. And then drone imagery is kind of like the best of both worlds. The only thing that kind of is less good is that the picture you take is just small. So you have small coverage, you need more pictures to do the same amount of coverage. You're also limited by the battery. Batteries on like hobby drones last up to like 20 minutes, which is kind of inconvenient. But what's great is that you get resolution up to like 30 centimeters, or sorry, 3 centimeters per pixel, which is like super small when flying at like 80 meters high. So the lower you go, obviously the higher resolution you get to. So we're going to be looking at this company called DJI. DJI makes these micro drones at a really affordable price. Pretend like I'm holding one, the one I was supposed to bring. They're super lightweight. They're like under 250 grams. They can do pretty well in the wind, which is nice. They are incredibly small. Like you can hold them in like the palm of your hand. And yeah, they last pretty long if you have like the right battery. And then anyone in this room can go and purchase one and fly one today. They don't require any FAA registration unless you're going to make money off your drone imagery. Also, feel free to like stop me and just ask questions, because it's we're just gonna fly through this otherwise. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's really important. Can't fly in snow or rain. The way that they make these drones is everything's pretty open. All the well, not all. A lot of the things are pretty open to the atmosphere. So when it rains, it can kind of go through the cracks or in the propellers and then down to electronics and then just short circuit it and break it. You can fly through clouds a little bit, but clouds are really moist, so like not recommended, but you can do it. Snow, yeah, I mean same thing as rain, but it's difficult in the winter in Vancouver, that's for sure. But yeah, it's really good for pretty much any time outside of rain. Yeah, so really good in the summer, unless there's smoke. I'm kidding. No, in the smoke it's okay actually too. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the main thing, right? You're pretty much limited by the weather. So yeah, so some geospatial concepts we're going to go over today. So everything in pictures are typically called rasters. Raster images, they're kind of like stitched together pictures that make one big picture, or stitched together sub-pictures that make one picture. Each pixel is spatially referenced, so that means this pixel here has a coordinate associated with it. All the metadata is also spatially referenced, and there's Python packages that we'll use to show you how to do that later. And then the data can be multispectral. So what that means is like you can split up the data into multiple bands. What that means is like this RGB, red, green, blue image is split up in those RGB bands, red, green, blue bands. And more advanced drones, more expensive drones, also can have other bands of imagery on there as well, like near infrared, for instance. It's a really common one that you get. A lot of things that a lot of the analysis we're going to do today is just on the RGB bands, but a lot more sophisticated analysis will be including like near infrared bands. But these hobby drones just have the RGB. We're going to be using this picture a lot today, by the way. This is my neighbor's backyard. So a raster image, like I mentioned earlier, is just a bunch of pixels. It's just like a 2D array of pixels, and each pixel has their own value. I show here single numbers, but in reality, each of those numbers is like actually a number in a 2D array. So like that would be like 1, 0, 0, for instance, for like blue. Green would be 0, 0, 1, but I just kind of labeled it this just as much less cluttered. And what's really neat is that you can do a lot of quick spatial operations using numpy with these. This field, by the way, is called remote sensing. A lot of folks in like the science world will call it remote sensing. So a few things about this that we'll touch on today are spatial, temporal, spectral, and radiometric resolution. So spatial resolution effectively means like what is the size of a pixel projected on the ground. So your pixel sizes are actually really small, like they're like in microns, like tiny. And then you project that onto the ground, and you can say what is the resolution, or we'll call it the ground sampling distance, or GSD. We'll get into that later. Next one is temporal resolution. This is like the frequency between images. So like let's say I take a picture today, tomorrow, that's the temporal resolution of one day, for instance. Nothing too fancy going on there. Spectral resolution is like the number of bands that an image has. So, right, so like an RGB image has a spectral resolution of 3. And then the last thing is radiometric resolution. This one sounds fancy, but it's really, it's nothing too complicated. It's just the number of shades a color has. So if you have like an 8-bit image, there are 2 to the 8 numbers of shades of that color, right? So if you're in the blue band, for instance, and you're of an 8-bit image, there are 255 shades of blue. Yeah, it's actually 2 to the 8 minus 1, because it starts at 0, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. So we're going to cover a few different libraries and tools today. Nothing too crazy. In my initial abstract, I mentioned a few more, but it felt a little bit unnecessary after fully writing the presentation. So the first one is called rasterio. Has anyone used rasterio before? Nice. Okay, cool. We're not going to use it in a pretty elaborate way today. It's just pretty simple. This helps just read and write geospatial data. Next one is maybe a little bit more, I don't know, not commonly used. It's an EXIF tool library. So this one helps read and also write metadata from an image. Then numpy and matplotlib, probably most people here have used it. Just reading data and then manipulating data and then plotting data. Last one, OpenCV. Has anyone used OpenCV before? Yeah, a few of you? Cool. So that one's a computer vision library. We're not going to do any machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, any of that sort of stuff today. We're going to make it pretty straightforward. So this one uses a lot of heavy C++ under the hood, but what we're going to do is just use it to do mathematical equations. Yeah, but it can do a lot of stuff. It can do a lot of really cool object detection, all these things. Any questions? You guys are really keen to get right into it. Cool. This is, by the way, the inlet behind my house. Kind of cool. Yeah?
I was just looking at the like said, but
Yeah.
maybe so for instance, like take images in a wide variety, like a GeoTIFF or
Yeah.
is it able to handle kind of like arbitrary metadata, or is it just the TIFF standard, anything besides that?
Yeah, good question. So it can handle a lot of different types. I don't want to say like for certain every type, but it can also handle like custom metadata as well. This is called like XMP data, which we'll see later. I don't know what that stands for. EXIF data is typically what it's called, but then you can add custom fields to it as well. Yeah. Today actually we're going to be working with JPEGs. That's what's written off of these drones. But you can turn JPEGs into geospatially referenced like TIFFs, or GeoTIFFs. Yeah. Cool. You guys want to just get right into it? So I'll give you guys like a sec to, here, there's a bigger version of that. You also don't have to, you can just like follow along. But this is like a GitHub repo that I created, which I worked on until like a couple hours ago, so sorry if you already looked at it. This is much more up to date now. And yeah, we're gonna go through like each notebook one by one. They're labeled 1 through 6. You can either git clone the repo, which you don't have to do, or like a better way or a faster way to do it is just like each of the notebooks has a Google Colab link. If you're not familiar with it, that's okay. You never need to have used it before. Just need a Google account associated with your computer or on your computer. And then you just like click the button, it brings you to an interactive Python notebook. Does everyone have this? Can I move on to the next slide? Everyone's good? Nodding. I'll wait a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds. That's the one, yeah. You're going too far, yeah. Yeah, so what my next step, by the way, just thinking out loud here, is I'm going to go to a slide, talk about it for a bit, and then I'm going to open up the notebook, and then we'll kind of go along with it. It's going to be a little bit messy back and forth, but that's all I can do. Can I get rid of this page? Awesome. Cool. So, picture of my neighborhood again. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up rasters, rasters. It's going to basically go through how we use rasterio or rasterio, whatever you want to call it, to extract data and compose a scene. So I'm going to get out of here. Where is my mouse? You guys are probably going to be way faster with me than this. Hold on. In which direction is my mouse? Down, up, down. Perfect. Alrighty. I'm gonna. Is this up? Oh, this is up. Alright. I feel like it's always different. So, 1. This is terribly low resolution. So, go here, click Google Colab. Oh my goodness, this is super low. Do you guys mind if I just open up my like VS Code and you guys can use this? It just might be a little bit faster. Hey, there we go. How do I increase? There we go. I feel super, there we go, old. All right, yeah. So if you're here, if you're in Google Colab, click this little cell. This will install rasterio and then get you the image that you need. If you're doing this locally, you don't need to do this, but rasterio is not already installed on Google Colab. Just to make sure it works, click this button. Plus, does this work for everyone? By the way, were you able to wget the image and install rasterio on Google Colab? Yeah. Good? Okay, good stuff.
Where's the link to go after?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let me go back to it. Oh, sorry. The link is, so if you go in.
I'm not set up at all.
Oh, that's all good. Did you, so, my goodness, let me go back a slide. We're like running super ahead schedule, so like, feel free to interrupt. This is what the link is to the notebook. Got the link? Cool. Yeah, so if you open the first notebook and then click that blue button, it'll open in Colab like this. So yeah, press that little button. If you don't mind me running this on your Google account, say run anyway. It's gonna take a minute. Wi-Fi is not super fast, as you probably can tell. Actually, I can probably just increase the size here. Oh, look at that. I'm gonna do this with you guys on Google Colab. All right. We'll make sure it works. Hit this button. All right, hold on. It's still thinking over here. Nice. Okay, import rest here for me. Okay, so cool. So if you're running this locally, I included the path just 2 ways. So basically, like, if you do this in Colab, it saves it to a content file. It saves your image to a content file. Otherwise, we'll just look for the local file to the repo. Cool. So just define that path. And then the first thing we're going to do is look at how rasterio opens an image. So there's a lot of important stuff here. I'm not going to really go through it all, but the metadata of the image is presented there. So it shows you like the image size. It shows you the number of bands. It shows you that This image, in fact, has no projection. Um, so what that means is there are different ways that you can project the globe, or like maps on the globe, right? So you'll you'll maybe have heard of a few, but basically, you can get some that are optimized for different scenarios. It doesn't really matter. We're super low to the Earth, like 80 meters, that the projection doesn't make a difference. Well, makes like the smallest bit of difference. So no projection, that's fine. And then we'll see here that the bounding boxes are just in terms of pixels. So it's not, this one's not geospatially referenced. So that means that the pixels are just in pixel coordinates. It's not in like long lat or whatever coordinates, which is all we need for this. Yeah? Yeah. You know, it's even hard for me to read too. This is way better. Is this better for you? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, so everything's in terms of pixel coordinates, which is actually more convenient for what we're going to do. And then it's just giving a little, I don't know, thing saying, by the way, there's no coordinate system, so that's fine. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to compose a scene. So we're going to use rasterio to open up the image and save each of these bands into blue, green, and red. You're probably wondering, how do you know that blue is number one? Trial and error. I thought green was number one, and I mean red, and it turns out it was blue. And then, yeah, so what we're going to do now is just check out the array. So I'm just looking at the blue array, for instance. So this is what the data array looks like. It's nothing special. The numbers go between 0 and 255. As I mentioned earlier, this is an 8-bit image. So the numbers go between 0 and 2 to the 8 minus 1 because it's indexed at 0 first. These are just brightness values. 0 is super dim, black, and 255 is as bright as you can go in the blue band. And then next thing we do, nothing really fancy here, just going to plot them. So red, green, whoa, and blue. Look at that. White, I'm pretty sure this means like really bright, and dark means really dim. Nothing really fancy going on here. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to stack those bands together. So I'm going to use this NP stack thing to just combine all three of those RGB into one 3D array. So you can see here the size is 3,000 by 4,000 by 3. And I'm just going to visualize this. You can do this with any sort of image, by the way. So you don't need to do this with drone imagery. You can split up any sort of image and do this way as well. And here we go. My neighbor's backyard. Good stuff. How does that feel for everyone? Good? Cool. All right, so next slide. Cool. Let me see. Nope, too far. Haha. Okay, cool. So now we're going to extract and utilize the EXIF data, or the metadata, I really should have said. So we're going to use the EXIF tool library that you guys have seen earlier, and we're going to use it to get some context of the scene. So if everyone can go to the number 2 notebook. Oh, look, you can see my little presenter's notes. Look at that. I'm just going to go back a few. Oh my goodness, this is a bad idea. Okay, note to self, open in a new tab. All right, new tab. Just gonna bump up yeah, here we go. Okay, so this one's gonna take a little bit longer because you have to download a few more things. So I'm just gonna, open Colab. I'm just gonna quickly hit this button again. So just install a few things, and then you're probably wondering what this is all about here. So I'm installing the PyTool library, but I'm also installing this, which is like the actual like CLI command. We're gonna run it later. I'll show you in a second. Has anyone ever like done metadata analysis on images before? Yeah, you have? Cool. Microscopy, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, you have as well? A medical, yeah, look at you guys, yeah. Yeah, this is a lot more a lot easier probably than what what you've done. Cool. What sort of stuff do you get out of medical images?
Everything. From, like, there's a header that has hundreds of thousands of different properties from scan acquisition, like parameters, patient information,
Cool.
everything.
Yeah, yeah.
How the patient is positioned on the table.
Oh,
How
whoa.
much radiation they get.
Whoa, that's cool. Do you do that like in Python or in another, just like a?
We do use Python library for our key identification efforts prior to
Oh, cool.
research.
Nice. Which library do you use? Do you know?
MyDicom, MyNetDicom.
Okay. Nice. Very cool. Okay, well, this is going to look very easy compared to that probably, but that's okay. This is supposed to be easy. Cool, so we're going to import the path as before. This is another way to do this, by the way. So before we extracted all 3 bands and then stacked them, you can also just use rasterio to just grab all 3 bands into one. And you can see, like, this is the 3 by 3000 by 4000. I'm going to import EXIF tool and JSON. So there's a few reasons for this, but basically when you use EXIF tool, it imports it as a big string as a JSON, so I'm just going to dump that string into a big JSON, or a dictionary, as we call it in Python. So we're going to do that here, and put the summary, but we'll see right here. So as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff you can get out of it. So you can get like stuff like file size, you can get stuff like the image details. You can see this is taken with like a DJI camera. You can see a bunch of different things like geospatial coordinates, the altitude, all sort of things. The altitude, by the way, that we're going to be working with is relative to the takeoff position of the drone, not the absolute altitude. And a bunch of different camera settings. Yeah, nothing super interesting going on here, but we'll use it later on for building the scene. I'm going to, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Does one of these fields refer to like what direction the camera is facing, whether it's straight down or not?
Yeah, that'll be the gimbal pitch, somewhere around here. They should all be at -90 probably. Let's see. Gimbal pitch degree 0 degrees. Well, backwards. Yes. Hi. Yeah.
But like these metadata, how are these populated? Is it like instrument that you're using to capture the image out of these metadata, or is it like pre-processed before feeding it into strings like these?
Yeah. Good question. So this is all written from the drone, pretty much. So all I've done here is I've taken the SD card, put it in my computer, downloaded the images. That's it. The drone.
The shot and it auto-populates all the information onto that image metadata.
That's right. Yeah. The firmware does all the work and it gives it to us. Yeah. Yeah. You can see here like these values here, like the gimbal roll and gimbal yaw, they're at 0, and also gimbal pitch. This is all wrong, by the way. I can talk about this for a long time, but the DJI SDK just has a big bug in it that they've never addressed. So let's hope they fix that eventually. But you can find it another way, which is, you can use their SDK to populate the value. So in short, their firmware does some work, actually a lot of work. Some of it's wrong, and then you can use their SDK to populate the rest correctly. Yeah.
Can I ask what a circle of confusion is?
Yeah, good question. That's basically, well, I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm going to just Google it. Circle of confusion. Right. Okay, I'm just going to show you because I think it'll be able to explain it better than me. So it's basically how focused the camera is. Yeah. So in optics, there's a thing called point spread function, which is defined by the whole camera system. And when you have a really small circle of confusion, like the light is really, really pinpointed down, you have a large one, it's less focused. Yeah. Yeah, we can really get into this, by the way. I'm really interested in this sort of stuff, and my whole astronomy background is all of this sort of things. So when you have a really small circle of confusion and it's like the size of the pixel or smaller, your resolution, your actual resolution of a thing on Earth is going to be the resolution of the pixel, which is what we call the ground sampling distance. Yeah.
So since you know approximately the post-response, is there a way to do a deconvolution, or is there value to doing such a thing, or we won't resolve the interesting details that get mushed together anyway?
You totally can. There probably is value in doing it. What we're going to do today, or like what we do at my company with this drone imagery, we actually don't care to resolve things smaller than we are able to, for a lot of reasons, but mainly is privacy. So like the people who purchase our data, we don't want to give them like license plate numbers or people's faces, that sort of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to pull out a few things from the metadata. So the relative altitude, focal length, and pixel pitch. Pixel pitch, by the way, really fancy word for saying the distance between two pixels. And what we're going to do here is we're going to measure that thing I called ground sampling distance. So the resolution of a single pixel projected down Earth. Now, you mentioned circle of confusion. This is actually a really good point. So if the circle of confusion is larger than the pixel pitch, then the circle of confusion is going to be the actual resolution of our image. But for all intents and purposes, this is as focused as it'll get, and it's usually pretty small, circle of confusion. So we'll just say the ground sampling distance is what we're going to be using as our resolution today. These numbers probably don't mean a whole lot to you and doesn't actually really matter, because we're going to go on to the next thing, which is measuring the ground sampling distance. You can get this off of Google or from a textbook, and then you get that the actual pixel that we're going to have in our camera is at this altitude of, I don't remember, 100 meters, 108 meters, has a 2.5 centimeter resolution. Pretty tiny, pretty incredible for what we're going to be doing. And what we're going to be going to do later is we're going to be trying to measure all the things like trees in the image. So if we wanted to do this, we look at, I don't know, let's say the average tree height is about 10 meters-ish. So then we can say the altitude minus the tree height is the height that we want to sample at. We'll do all the same thing. And we'll get the ground sampling distance for the tree height, or the canopy height, people will say also. And then assuming the tree is 10 meters across, just for like simplicity, we can say that the diameter of the tree in pixels is this number. I don't know, 44,000-ish pixels. Sounds big, and just because these are super high resolution cameras. This might sound irrelevant, but we'll be using this stuff later. Yeah.
This one is still a question. I apologize.
Mm.
How do you control for that privacy? Who's the face and others?
Yeah, that's not a silly question. It's a really hard thing to control for. So there's a few ways, but basically we use the properties of the camera, like circle of confusion, the ground sampling distance, all these sort of things, and say what's going to be the resolvable element. How small can we resolve things? And when we fly, and you can measure that with, like literally with this equation, the ground sampling distance. So here, this says we can resolve things that are 2.5 centimeters, like tiny, at 100 meters. In reality, it's going to be a little bit more because of the defocused camera. So you basically just you fly higher. And we found that if you fly at about 80 meters relative to the ground, you can't resolve stuff like faces and things that are identifiable, house numbers. Yeah. Yeah, really good question. Cool. We'll move on. Number 3, what's that? Cool, all right. So now we're going to be doing a little bit of, I'm just going to blow this up a little bit. Cool. A little bit of remote sensing. So has anyone heard of NDVI in the remote sensing world? Yeah, you have? Okay. So that stands for Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. Doesn't matter. Basically, it's a way to pull vegetation out of an image. And for that, you use near infrared, But these drones are really cheap, and they don't have $1,000 cameras on board. They're worth much less than $1,000. So we can do something kind of hacky, but kind of okay. It's called VARI, or the Visible Atmospheric Resistance Index. It's another way to attempt to measure vegetation out of a scene using just RGB. And it's does pretty well if you control for a few things, which we'll talk about in a minute. But basically, we're going to control for like the time of day, the lighting situation, yeah, those sort of things. And then from that, we'll be able to extract just the pixels that are likely associated with vegetation. Yeah. And then if you go really, really high, and then like let's say in an airplane, and you want to account for more atmospheric problems, you can look at that blue band, the minus blue, that'll account for more atmospheric issues. But really what we'll be mostly doing is just green minus red over the sum of the two. But the blue will help with altitude changes. All right. Oh, no. Yeah.
Does that still work in, say, the fall when trees are less green?
Oh, that's a great question. No, it doesn't. That's like the major thing that we'll be talking about later. But it looks for the excess greenery in a scene. Now, like if you were to use near infrared instead, which measures, the difference between near infrared and green, for instance, measures the actual like, what's it called? The actual activity of like, I'm gonna get this wrong. Something like chlorophyll being turned into energy. I don't know, something. It's Googleable. But basically, you're laughing because you're probably like, that's not it. Ah,
You're right.
nailed it. Okay, something. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. You look at the actual vegetation. This is just like a hacky way of looking at the excess green in a scene. Cool. Let's do this in Python. All right, let's do the same thing. Install rasterio, wget, all this stuff. I'm sure there's a way to cache this, but I don't know how to do that. So we're gonna do this every time.
Just FYI, I've
Yeah.
been running, like I just went to your GitHub and went to the code spaces,
Okay.
and so I've been running them in
Oh.
the same environment that CodeSpace provides.
Smart.
Which means I don't have to redo these.
Yeah, you should run this.
They did in the last tutorial.
Oh, okay. Nice. Huh. That sounds way smarter. Wow, I feel really dumb, but is there a button here to do this?
If you go to presentations, like yep, and then the top right code,
Yeah.
and then code spaces,
Ooh.
and then create.
Oh, look at this.
And I have it running on my local VS Code that you can set that up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so cool. Okay, next year. Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, noted for next year. I'm just going to do it this way for now, because that kind of scares me. Yes.
Like the formula that you showed, like green minus red and green plus red minus blue.
Yep.
That is already an established formula to detect green light.
Mm-hmm.
Dependent some other research.
Yes. Yeah. If you look here, this is the paper it came from.
This basically just detects green in the image and this
Yeah.
results irrespective of tree or no tree. Just finding green.
Yeah, it looks at like the excess greenery in the scene. Yeah.
I don't know how to phrase this, but this sort of relies on the image being like natural images of this, like taken from a camera that understands it's taking an RGB image, not just three separate images and stacking them up on top of each other, right? Because I mean, like in some images, the red, the green, the blue channel have like vastly different information, for instance.
I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean?
Yeah, so like when you're subtracting red from green, that
Mhm.
means that there's a lot of overlap of information in those two bands, right?
What do you mean, like, overlap of
Like
information?
they're the same objects. And they're
Oh,
the same,
I see.
like relatively like the same histogram pixel distributions.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
There's
right.
a lot of, it feels like, I have no idea, I've never seen this before, but it feels like there's a lot of assumptions baked in on like imaging that out.
Totally, yeah, there are a lot of assumptions. Are you talking about like the spectral response of the sensor?
I'm not sure. Like, maybe if you had the near infrared as one of the bands,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't have the red channel because you just, I don't know, you were taking, or maybe you were taking like, one of your bands is like the heat distribution on the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like sensor data, like you said.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't make sense to subtract the channel that has information about texture and shape of trees from the heat distribution of those. Right?
Yeah.
It assumes like your RGB are like a 3-channel RGB image. It's not like 3 channels of different.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It can be 3 channels. So, with a caveat. So, so you can have like 3 separate channels that measure just red, just like with like, let's say, a filter in front of whatever way you want to do it, red, green, and blue, and you can do it that way. It doesn't really matter. It just this happens to be a sensor that measures red, green, and blue together, right? I'm not sure how this sensor does it, but some sensors will have like in a single pixel, like a red, a green, and a blue channel. I'm not sure how this one does it. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
I think that did.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and like so, like some satellites will do like they'll have those 3 separate channels, and then they'll take them at different times, like the red first, green, blue, second, and the blue third. Yeah, it's really cool. Actually, in some cool stuff you can get out of it is like if you look at a satellite pointing down, and then you take a picture of like an airplane flying across the sky, you'll see like a rainbow-style airplane, like red, green, and blue channels all separated. Yeah. And from that, you can actually, if you know like the time difference between the channels, you can measure how fast the plane was going. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
So then,
Yeah.
the more expensive drones that like measure additional channels, like are those like also included? Are they kind of sampled in the same way, where it's like multiple channels per pixel, or is it like a series of stacked emissions?
Yeah, you know what? The thing is, I don't know, is the real answer. The second thing is, my guess would be it would be a separate camera. Just from intuition. A lot of the near infrared sensors need cooling or just like different electronics associated with it. But I don't actually know. You could find out though. And let me know. DJI, by the way, is the company that we're using, and like they have a ton of different drones, some of which that have the near infrared sensor. Cool. All right. Vari, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Let's call it Vari, though. So we're going to do the same thing. Sorry, I'm sort of like kind of repetitive. Later on, I actually consolidate this all into one thing. So yeah, import rasterio, import the blue, green, and red. And then, oh yeah, right, I do something kind of fancy here. Not fancy, just saving myself from exploding the code. Basically, here I'm setting, I'm using numpy to like say, if I divide by 0, just set it to like infinity. It's okay, just like don't break the code. That's all this is all this is doing here. Because we have an equation that subtracts. I'm gonna stack those images just like before. I'm just gonna quickly show you guys. Ba-do-ba-do. Cool. My neighbor's backyard. Thank you, neighbor. Okay. Vari, I'm not sure. Yeah, here's the paper reference, by the way. You can see actually how they used it for satellite imagery, also for like standardized bands in here if you're really interested. But you don't need to read it. Cool, let me show you guys what just like the standard Vari without calibration at all looks like. Kind of crazy. So let's just pin it down to values that really make sense. Typically in the remote sensing world, they'll say like, values between like 0 and 1 will be associated with greenery. But the real answer is like, it all depends on your imaging system. It all depends on how you've calibrated the images. This is a non-calibrated commercial hobby drone. So I found that with our data, it works best between 0.1 and 5. Or it shows best on an image between 0.1 and 5. And then I'm just going to quickly show you what that looks like. Yeah, that's kind of a good job. So basically all the green stuff is likely associated with greenery, and all the non-green stuff, not associated with greenery. Yeah. Any questions on that? Cool. Yeah. So now we're going to use this to do some cool stuff. Let me show you. Oh yeah, nice. Okay, cool. So now we're going to be doing kind of some more complex stuff. We're going to be doing some more computer vision-y stuff. When I say computer vision, I mean like not machine learning, not deep learning, just like classic computer vision math. So we're going to be doing a few things. We're going to be doing thresholding, we're going to be doing blurring, and then morphological filtering. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. We'll walk through it. So we're going to be basically taking that Vari image that we saw earlier, and then composing it to be like a vegetation mask and then a non-vegetation mask. What that means is like a mask is like a binary mask in this case will be like all the ones will be vegetation, all the zeros will be not vegetation. Cool. Do you guys want to like take a break at all, or you guys just want to like keep powering through it? How you guys?
There will be snacks at 3:30, so
Ooh,
we can carry on.
let's do it. I would love us. I'd love a snack. Yeah, we can probably get this thing wholly done by 3:30, if you guys want to do it. I don't really care. I'm just gonna go at this comfortable pace, and then if we still have more left over, we can keep going. Cool. SciPy 2024. Keep losing this. All right, let's go with masks and filters. Let's collab it. Boom. I'm gonna do the same thing. Oh, yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna, by the way, if this hasn't happened to you yet, this will probably happen to you now. You just have to delete your collab sessions. This happens to me every year I do this, and then I always forget. Yeah. Cool. Just gonna kind of wait for this to do its thing. Sorry, it's very slow. You can just kind of click through the first little bit. It's all the same as what we did earlier until here, and then we'll talk about that. Nice, nice, nice. Nothing broke. Cool. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at like the same Vari image we looked earlier, but we're just going to be saying that anything between some minimum value and some maximum value is vegetation. Anything that's not is not vegetation. Pretty simple. In the computer vision world, they call that thresholding, but you can call it whatever you want. It doesn't actually matter. So in this case, we'll say anything between, 0.1 and really anything else. Anything between 0.1 and like a million is going to be associated with vegetation, and anything less than 0.1 is not vegetation. The thing is, I can go 0.1 to 0.5. That's like where like 95% of the data is, but I'm just going to grab a few extra straggler pixels from above that. Let's take a look at what that looks like. There we go. Cool. So vegetation, not vegetation. I'll show you compared to the RGB in a minute. Yeah, what's up?
When you did the n-data, why was it filled with nan values instead of zeros?
Sorry, where?
Uh,
Oh.
Vegetation maps.
Yeah.
Like I charge 0 and it changes the visual result.
It does. Yeah.
Very surprising.
This is this is my sort of hacky way of doing this. So there are already zeros in that vari thing. So if you set things to 0 and then you say, look where things are greater than some value, it's going to be including those values. So I'm creating a big 4,000 by 3,000 thing of nans, and then I'm just saying, hey, like wherever vari is greater than 0.1, throw in those values of exactly 1. And then everything else, leave it as nan. Yeah. I know. I initially did the 0 thing at first too, and then I was like, this doesn't work. Yeah. And then, yeah, same thing for less then over here. From here on out, we'll just be working with just the vegetation mask. And then at the end, we'll just take the inverse and say, that's not vegetation. Filtering. OK, cool. So the first thing we have to do is like look at, well, Kel, let me explain this to you. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this vegetation mask and applying a Gaussian filter to it. You can apply different kinds of filters. Gaussian kind of works really well. You can say, hey.
Can you walk me through that np.full, because I don't use numpy library.
Yeah, sure. So where is that over here? So np.full. So this will create like an array that has the shape of this and fills it with values of this. So this is a 3,000 by 4,000 shape. So it's going to create an array that's 3,000 tall, 4,000 wide, and it's going to make every single value nan. Yeah. Sorry, I should have explained that earlier. So we're going to be taking a Gaussian function and blurring the whole images, or whole image with that function. We have to say how big that Gaussian value is, or how big the kernel is, as they usually say in computer vision. In this case, you can kind of do whatever you want. You can use whatever value you'd like. I chose a value of about 17.5 centimeters. Works really well. And then that just happens to be, right, with the Gaussian distance that we measured earlier, to be about 7 pixels. Sorry. So let's import this. Let's blur it. Oopsies. Yeah, there we go. And then let's take a look. It's kind of hard to see, by the way, like what happens here. But if you take the difference between these two, you can see everything that was blurred out. So what's happening here is we're like just blurring out a lot of noise and a lot of like pixels that like might not be fully associated with greenery. A lot of high frequency noise. A lot of stuff that's like kind of like dotted everywhere. So there might be a lot of like what's it called, like false detections, or a lot of like false positives. So we're kind of blurring those out. We're trying to, at least our very best to. You can play with that kernel size to change it as well. And that will also be probably variable with height. Because the higher you go, the lower resolution. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to be doing morphological filtering. I'll let you read this. I kind of wrote it more verbosely than I'm going to say it out loud. But basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be applying different kinds of mathematical equations to filter out more stuff. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing an opening filter. Effectively what this does, this just takes this image here and then does a better job at like pulling out all of the, or turning all the values that are like more stragglers, that are smaller than a certain value, and throwing it away. So like, if that dot there is smaller than the kernel size, it turns into a 0 or a nan. And I just chose like a more appropriate size for things that are probably not associated with big trees. So in this case, I chose it to be 75 centimeters, about 2 feet. So this will get rid of like little patches of grass, maybe little bushes. Again, you can play with this, right? Like if you want to get rid of like larger fields or like rows of bushes, you can increase that as well. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Again, it's not super obvious, just because like the images are super high resolution. Like when you look at them, when you have them like bigger, it's more obvious what's happening. And here we go. Now you do have a negative side effect, I'll get to in a sec, of you'll see this like border happen here, and what happens is like you'll have the convolution of that kernel going around, and so you kind of create this like this effective mask. Like you can see there are like little dots here, and they're all being convolved together. It's just a little negative side effect, but we'll deal with that later. Yeah.
So we're working with one still image, and are you able to take these and sort of normalize these parameters and utilize them over a large area where you're having to move your drone out and beyond, where things are changing, maybe your greenery is slightly changing, maybe your shadows are changing, etc. For example, I work with roads, and so we constantly, the shadow on the road will change depending on the time of year.
Yeah.
The sun is behind the trees and all, etc. So those shadows are going to mess up all of this filtering, I think.
Totally. So I won't go through the whole thing again, but like in this one over here, you can effectively do that by changing like different values, different constant values in front of like, let's say green and red. Like let's say there was a lot of shading, and you know that affects the red channel more than the green. You can apply like a factor of like 2 to the red to boost every value of red, for instance. Like you can do things much more sophisticated than that, but that's just like an example of what you can do. You can use the context of your scene to effectively give you a more robust Vari map. And I left all the constants in front to just be 1, just for this purpose. But you can basically change this to give you a more accurate response. You'll see later that things are not super accurate, and like you can change things to give a more accurate response. I chose imagery like all within a certain time of day during a certain time of year. So that this formula gave me like pretty good results for that, but you can be more flexible. Yeah.
Can you be more automated about it, though?
Probably, yeah. I mean,
You can detect shadows with it, I assume, and sort of make decisions based on that.
yeah. I mean, like you can get as sophisticated as you want, really. Like you can say like if it's so there's different APIs out there. You can say like at this geolocation, what time of day is the sun going to get above a certain angle above the horizon, right? Let's just say 5 degrees above the horizon is good enough for it to be bright. And then you can say like the horizon actually has like mountains in the back. You can get like a certain API that costs some money to tell you what the angle above the horizon is above those mountains that's associated with like terrain. You can use like the Google API to give you like the local terrain that you're around that will give you like your relative altitude, which is how we get those values. Yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, you can do other things like on board that will measure relative brightness. Like you can say that I'm not sure. Let's just say you pointing at the sun will break everything. But let's just say you point at the sky and it's really blue at a certain time of day. You know what the spectral responses of your camera is for that certain time. You can create a sort of calibration to say what does a shadow look like during that time.
White balance.
Yeah, effective white balancing. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Cool. So we've smoothed, we've done opening filters. Last thing we're gonna do is a closing filter. So this takes all of all these things that are holes in the mask, and it closes them when they are convolved with a certain size. I said again, 75 centimeters. You can do whatever value you'd like. I'm going to run these. And again, this is like all related to the context of my neighbor's backyard. So I sort of have done this for their scene, but you can do this for whatever scene you like. Like, you know, if you think that there are things in your scene that will be larger than 75 centimeters that are associated with greenery, you change that value. Cool. So effectively, we've created this like pseudo image processing pipeline. We've done smoothing, filtering, and then let's take a look at what this looks like. So here I've created the inverse of that filtered image. So now we have a vegetation mask and a non-vegetation mask. It's not perfect, but nothing ever is perfect, so it's good enough for now. Any questions on this, you guys? Cool, let's keep on trucking. All right. Next thing, segmentation. So this is where things get interesting, and people might have different reactions to this slide. I use segmentation in the sense of we are taking pixels and we're saying these are associated with greenery. It's not real segmentation, as like people probably have heard of in machine learning. So I'm sorry if I'm getting on anyone's toes here, but basically I've created this presentation to say you don't have time for machine learning, you don't know machine learning, you don't have enough data for it, you don't have the resources for it. Here's how you can approach segmentation without doing any of that sort of stuff with like a $500 drone. Yeah, let's do it. So here we're going to be using the real context of the scene that we learned from our EXIF data. Segmentation. Collab. wget. Okay, so this is where I became a little smarter, and I just kind of put everything to one cell, so you don't have to click 100 times. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be taking all of the stuff that we used in like the last one, in the last notebook, to create the masks for us. Basically, we're going to go back and just create these in just one go. So nothing different's going on here. I'm just going to press play, and then we're going to get those masks in just a minute. Okay, cool. Masks. Here we go. Okay, so now we're gonna do some of the stuff that we did in the second notebook. Grab the EXIF data from this, and then create context from that scene to grab like the kernel size, the size that we're going to use to filter from the morphological filters. So I could have just measured like the ground sampling distance, but I know it's 25 centimeters, so I'm just going to import it here because it's just kind of gets messy. We know the diameter of the tree. We know, we know the diameter of the tree, and then we know that we want to make the kernel size a square. So I just take the diameter of the tree, square root, and to turn the tree into meters to pixels, I just divide it by the ground sampling distance. Since it's meters per pixel, brings it back to pixels. And then the last thing, which is kind of like I'm going to kind of gloss over, but basically kernel sizes, the sizes that we're going to convolve with, have to be odd numbers. The reason is we just use it for symmetry in a scene. It gets a little bit more complicated, but basically the kernel has to be an odd number. Let's make it odd if it's not already odd. So now we have the size of our convolution kernel associated with the things that we want to measure, all taken from the EXIF data. And yeah, assumed a tree is 10 meters wide. Not perfect, but like, it's okay. We're basically trying to pull out the information that we care about in the scene. And now I'm going to do some more things that we did earlier. So blur, and then our opening and closing filters, all with the kernel size related to the tree. Okay, cool. Plus sign means happy code. And now I'm just going to be doing the things that just for visualization. So here I'm going to be creating like a big array of zeros. I'm going to be saying everything that is purple in the scene is trees. Purple just happens to be blue plus green. So I'm just going to do that. Nothing really complicated is going on here, so I'm just saying that like I want these channels to be green and blue. And I'm going to be doing the same thing for the inverse of that, aka the non-vegetation mask. And then let's plot it to see what that looks like. So, plot, plot, plot. Wait. Here we go. Look at that. Again, not perfect, but what we've done is we've been able to grab all the pixels that we think are associated with trees or greenery, and then non-greenery. Pretty good. What do you guys think of it? Yeah.
I missed what you said, but what does this class over last notebook where you had greenery and
All I've done here, I basically did the entire last notebook in the first cell and then also in this cell. In between, sandwiched between those two, I took the context of like the image and of the things that we want to try and pull out to create the kernel size for the blurring, for the morphological filters. That's all I did differently here. And then I did these two overlays, which is like the segmentation approach, like show me what is a tree and what isn't a tree, or what is vegetation, what's not vegetation, which is the purple stuff here. Yes.
can you walk me through that 128 there when you're doing the
Yeah.
kernel, what does that mean?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I very much glossed over this. So the picture has a value of between 0 to 255. Red plus blue, yeah, makes purple. And then I just set those values to just 128, sort of somewhere in the middle, just so it's not super purple. It's just, I just played around with those numbers. It's basically just a visualization technique for this. To get sort of in the weeds, I made a big array of zeros 3 times. So each channel is 0. So it's 3,000 by 4,000 array, 3 times stacked together. And then I just changed those values of those arrays to be 128, kept them as zeros, and then another 128.
And then what is that 0, 1, 2, that's in the index?
That's the index. So like imagine it's like a stack of arrays. I don't have 3 hands, but imagine it's 2, right? This one is channel 0. This one's channel 1. This one would be channel 2. Yeah. And then what I'm doing here is I'm saying wherever there isn't a value, wherever there isn't a value of that segmentation or of that mask, just set it to 0 so that we can see through it, basically. And then what I did, that's all over here. What I did here is I basically did the exact same thing, but for the non-vegetation mask. And how I got the non-vegetation mask, I said which is the closing filter, right? So the closing filter, I said, wherever there's no value, so wherever there's a 0, make it a 1, and wherever there's a 1, make it a 0. That's just this quick NP logical knot. It's a really handy tool. Otherwise, it's like 4 lines of code. And I kept it as an 8-bit image. Otherwise, it floats and gets really messy. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
From a use case standpoint, I know, we're detecting vegetation, but with the sampling and the pre-processing done, we're eliminating small risks. Certain areas that are probably vegetation, but smaller vegetation. Why do we do that? Like, or are we just detecting like trees?
Exactly. Yeah, so all the morphological filtering that we did there, the blurring and then all the filtering, so morphological and the blurring, I tried to blur out small stuff. So like you said, like pots of flowers, for instance, or green things, ferns.
Trying to detect canopy cover then,
So,
just vegetation?
sorry, can you say it again, please?
Are we trying to detect canopy cover then?
Pretty much, just canopy cover. We're gonna get other stuff like patches of grass that like are close to canopy cover. But yeah, all the small stuff, delete it. And I'll talk more about some drawbacks of this at the end of the next one.
One of the reasons why I was wondering that is because I noticed like there's a very prominent
Here?
green line
Yeah, right here.
around the trees. Like you can see the edge of the tree doesn't count.
I know. Yeah. I guess
That makes sense.
it's tricky. Yeah. But there's I'll get into that in the next notebook. Yeah. And there's methods for getting around that, but a little bit too much for this. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
For this sort of data, do you ever find a use case for varying the actual shape of the kernels, like crosses and ellipses?
Haven't done that. The answer is I don't know, actually. I've only worked with squares.
I just know, like, me too, and I just know that, like, SciPy and OpenCV, they always provide, like, different shapes.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, who is getting into the weeds so far that they're actually,
Yeah.
I mean, I get if you're doing, like, vertical.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah. I mean, I guess what could be useful for this could be like a circular shape to only pull out trees. But then it gets a little bit complicated when you have clusters of trees, or if you have, I don't know, if you have like trees that are like, have stuff in between them. Yeah, it can get complicated. I stuck with the square for this, but I did the Gaussian kernel for the blurring, which is not a square. Yeah. So open up this guy in Colab and then quickly just press this because this is a big folder. So basically what we have here is we have like, I think 12 images, or I can't remember. There's a lot more going on here. So you're just like getting the zip folder, you're unpacking it, and then you're deleting data that you've zipped, the zip data. This will take a minute. You might be wondering what all these funny prefixes are in front. This is like, has anyone here heard of like the H3 protocol in like the geospatial world? It's kind of like niche. I don't know. Basically, you can split up the Earth into hexagons everywhere. If you just add a bunch of hexagons together, you can basically make up the Earth. And these values here are associated with spots on the Earth. So if you just Google, like, what is that value in the H3 hash, you'll get, like, an actual coordinate on the Earth, which is kind of cool. There's Python libraries to actually decode them as well. Oh, right. I've got a slide. I keep forgetting I have slides. Here we go. OK, so now basically what we're going to do is we're just going to do everything we did again, but in a little bit more formal way. So we're going to take all the imagery. Actually, what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to make functions for everything. Basically take everything that was relevant, throw it into a function, and then we're going to create like an image processing pipeline. We're going to just function after function. Nothing super fancy, just like completely standard. And then we're going to use the context of the scene to effectively grab all the greenery for each individual image. So each image is, we're going to measure the ground sampling distance associated with the canopy cover, and then we're going to use that all that information to try and estimate the carbon capture for the city of Vancouver, British Columbia. And then last thing, talk about some drawbacks, because there's a lot of them. This is not perfect. You'll get to see more images of not my neighbor's backyard. All right, cool. Look at that. Data, 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 data. Whoa, a lot of stuff. Cool. So let's import all the stuff in one go. Set that error to not explode. And then we're just going to define a bunch of functions. So stop me if you like at any point. So this function, I used fancy ChatGPT to give me some doc strings because I do not like writing doc strings. This just takes all the data out of the image, splits it up into 3, then also stacks it, returns all of those bands. This gets the metadata, uses PyXF tool to just grab the metadata, returns it. This gets the ground sampling distance. So we're going to take the information from the metadata. We're going to grab the altitude, the focal length of the camera, the image width, the pixel pitch, which we mentioned earlier. You might be wondering, where did this magic number come from? This came from the spec sheet of the drone that I'm using. Unfortunately, it doesn't come out of the edit metadata, so I just had to Google it. Pixel pitch, by the way, is like the distance between pixels. And then I'm going to measure the ground sampling distance for the ground, and then the ground sampling distance for the canopy cover or for a tree at that altitude. So I'm going to be assuming a tree height here. Well, not assuming. I'm going to be giving a tree height here. Oh, I assume a default height of 15 if not given, but we give it everywhere, so it doesn't really matter. Also, funny I made it 15. I really should have made it 10. Yeah. Anyway. And then here we're going to be using the ground sampling distance of the tree to create the kernel size that we did earlier. So nothing is new here. So going to be creating the square root of that value, and then going to be making that odd for symmetry reasons. Yeah. No, it's okay. I'm actually flying through this. So you can stop me. Yeah, good question. I'm doing it to get the. I'm assuming like it's a pixel's a square, so so if I take the square root of a side of a square, you get like the root of the square. I don't know how to say this in English. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to do it without drawing it on a thing.
Like that's because kind of like I mentioned in like just only computer vision and math have certain size. Usually it's like 3 by 3, 5 by 5.
Yeah, exactly. So like in this case, we're doing it like square root of the tree width by square root of the tree width. You know, like we're using the tree size's value as like the kernel size. Yeah, and if you make it the size of the tree, which is there, you begin to blur things out that are the size of the tree, or blur things out that are like really relevant in the scene. Mm. Yep.
So here it would be that's 100,000. That I think the kernel would be 100, assuming it would be 100 by 100 kind of like kernel. So does it make a difference if you have 100 by 100 kernel versus a normal computer vision convention, which is usually like 357 or whatever, like in the units of 10?
Mm-hmm.
How does that compare?
Got it. Okay. So basically, I don't know if this answers your question or if we're going to go in a loop again, but like I'm using the context of the scene to try and filter things out that I don't care about. So I don't care about small things. I don't care about things that are smaller than a tree, really. What I'm trying to do here is like roughly estimate how many trees are in a picture. That's actually what we're going to do in a second. I'm trying to I'm trying to pull a picture and say roughly how many trees are we seeing in this picture. Mm-hmm.
Your kernel size being square root of that length suffices for getting the context of the tree out of the image. Like if it have been something smaller or within that space that you might want to extract, then only it makes sense to make that kernel size 3, 5, 10.
Yeah, exactly. And like, yeah, the thing is, like, let's say I was looking for small patches of grass. If I used which might be like a 3 by 3 or 4 or 5 by 5 or 7 by 7 kernel, it wouldn't be getting rid of the bigger things still. So it gets a little bit complicated when you're looking for small things in a scene. But yeah, for big things in a scene, it's usually, yeah, you just go for the bigger size that are related to the object you're interested in. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Next thing, going to define the vari function again. I'm going to define the thresholding, which is, again, remember, like, you say bigger than a certain value, set it to 1, less than that, set it to 0. And then smoothing, so this is the Gaussian blur. This, by the way, like has like a kernel of 7, like a 7 by 7. This is just purely like this worked well for this. Yeah, basically what Gaussian blurring does is it gets rid of high frequency noise. So a lot of small dots. That's what this is doing. So like maybe just straight up false detections. Sometimes, I mean, a lot of times, in commercially made sensors, you'll have like these things called hot pixels or dead pixels, pixels that just don't work, or pixels work erratically. It'll get rid of that noise as well. Morphological operations. By the way, also, in commercial CCD sensors, you also see like, it gets really complicated and way more than I know, but like you can also see like hot rows or hot columns of pixels, usually because that's how it's made. Like you'll have like a row or a column that's like all electrically combined. So morphological operations tend to also blur those out as well. So nothing new here. And then the pseudo segmentation, just basically creating those masks again. So again, nothing new. And then just that like plotting function I had over and over again, just this sort of thing. In this case, I'm just going to specifically do RGB vegetation, non-vegetation. Okay, and then right. Okay, now this is like the image processing pipeline that we've created. So first thing is we're going to get the bands from the scene. Next thing, we're going to get the metadata. Afterwards, we're going to get the ground sampling distance. For some things, we'll use the one of the tree as well. Then we're going to use that tree ground sampling distance to get the kernel size. From that, we'll measure the area of the tree as well, which we'll use later. I'm going to get vari, and then I'm going to get the masks from that thresholding function. I'm going to smooth out stuff with the Gaussian blur, and then I'm going to take that smooth mask and the kernel size, which we got earlier, and get the morphologically operated mask, which is what I've just called filtered mask. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use that segmentation, pseudo-segmentation function to just get those overlays. And then I'm going to return a bunch of stuff. There's pretty ways of doing this, but we're having fun. And all this stuff that I'm going to return, we use later on. So I'm just going to run this just to define it. And I'm just going to test it out on my neighbor's backyard, just one last time. So I'm going to spit stuff out like, I don't know, the relative altitude, I should say, and then the kernel size. Just interesting to me. We'll use it for the context of this as well. Oops. Cool. Still works. Excellent. Okay. Now we're going to do some batch processing. So I'm going to be doing it to 12 images. I really could have gotten more, but it was really hard to convince GitHub to let me save a bunch of data on there. So we have 12 images. So if you're using Google Colab, this is the path that it saves data to. Otherwise, it'll be here. I'm just looking. All I'm doing here is I'm like, where is the data? And then if it's in both, just take the set. So don't get rid of duplicates. But it shouldn't be in both. That'd be too crazy of a coincidence. Cool. So now we have a list of images, just for fun. 18. Look at that. We're good then. 18. I actually don't know. I don't know why I thought 12. Why don't we just print length of image. Wow, this is really hard to do. 19. Wow. Look at that. We all have different numbers of images. Cool. So I'm going to be doing a few things here. Basically running this process image function, getting a bunch of stuff out of it, like ground sampling distance and whatever. I'm going to be counting the number of vegetation pixels. I'm going to be counting the number of, I'm going to be estimating, an estimate, like it's important to know this is an estimate, number of trees in the scene by just saying the number of vegetation pixels over like the expected area of a tree in pixel size. And then it'll just print out some number that'll be not accurate all the time, but on average it's pretty good. And then it'll just print a picture of it, and then I just do some things here. I'm just counting some numbers, which we'll use later.
Where does the expected number of pixels per tree come from?
That comes from assuming that a tree is 10 meters in diameter. Yeah, which is not perfect, which you'll see in a sec. Like, some trees are really skinny and tall.
Right, 'cause like regionally, there's different trees.
This is like for the city of Vancouver, which you'll even see in a second. Like, isn't perfect. You'll get really tall trees that are like probably more like 30 meters or 25 meters, and they're maybe like 4 meters in width, right? So like it's pretty different. Like you'll have like tall cedar trees, and you'll have really short and stubby trees. Nothing's perfect here. So like, also my neighborhood. So like you'll see like these trees are all cut pretty well. You'll have this pretty good. Then you'll see like, wow, you'll see like it caught some of the shadow here, right? So that's not perfect. Another tree. I mean, you can kind of do this on your own too. But you'll see here like the lighting makes a difference too, right? Like so there's some bright light coming from the presumably south here that like kind of messes with this tree a bit. And you can see like the number of trees isn't perfect, but it's like underestimated, overestimated. The actual like full analysis of this would be a little bit complicated, but you can measure sort of like what the overestimation is. This is actually kind of a fun one. I don't know why, but it thinks this house is a tree, which is kind of funny.
Is it a tennis court?
No, it's a house. I don't know why. I mean, because I would have assumed like the green would have been really dim on that, but what do I know? Yeah, keep going. I want to show you this like bad example. So you get some false detections, you get some like non-detections. Again, this can all be calibrated just from different things in like FARI. And then you get some like overestimation here because you have some shrubs. But overall, this is like a pretty solid job for not doing machine learning. Yeah, it kind of lets this thing go for a bit. It just kind of does its thing. This is kind of an interesting one. You have like, it like detects the grass, but then like there's a dead patch of grass. And it's like, no, that's not vegetation, which is actually kind of interesting. Let it kind of do its thing for a bit. If you run this on your own computer, it's much faster, which is nice.
I have a question about one of the images is it's the entire image is just a forest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious if there's a standard way of dealing with, I guess, issues of perspective, because like I guess some of the trees are really tall, and so like towards the outer edges of the image, they look more angled way in the center.
Totally.
Which I assume you'd have less of an issue with that with like satellite imagery, but with drone
Totally.
imagery, is there like a way that you would deal with that?
Yeah, that's a really challenging thing to deal with because we're so close to the trees. So yeah, like some of it appears to be, yeah, not top down. So yeah, this is the one. Also, something I love. I'm gonna answer your question in a second though. But something I love about this is like it didn't catch the dead tree. Like, that's kind of cool. But yeah, the answer is like with this simple method, there's like you're just gonna have to deal with it. But you can take information about the scene to get perspective. But really, this is just like the answer is like, no, you can't really do anything with that. It's really tricky. It's really tricky at low altitude. That's the thing that satellite imagery does really well. It's like just projecting everything as sort of flat.
But because I'm almost wondering if there's a way you can sort of do almost a reverse projection where you
Yeah.
make even more round condensing.
Totally. Yeah. So there's a lot of like different methods in computer vision that can reproject things. I think even OpenCV can do this as well. You just have to have like a standard, what's it called? Like a standard pattern in a scene to say like what the position of the object is in. Yeah. If you want to look it up, it's called pose estimation. That's like a way of doing it. Anyway, so we keep going down here. Look at that, it did it. Okay, cool. So now to kind of get onto the sciencey part of things. Again, I say science with like a, it's not pseudoscience, but it's like not, it's estimation is what we're doing here. So here we're going to try and estimate the amount of carbon captured by these trees. So I'm going to first look at this. I can't read what that says. Oh yeah, average number of trees. Okay, hi.
I think there's a typo. So later you just do entries instead of average entries.
Oh,
So you do average entries equals, but then later in the next line and following lines, you do just entries, which is from the loop. So it's the last image number of trees, not the end. So just change and underscore
yeah,
trees.
yeah. You're right. Hold on. So average number of trees. Yeah. That's right. Thank you. There's always a typo. Yeah, because oops, what entries is just the last number of trees in the last image. Yeah, thank you. Average number of trees. Cool. So by the way, this value here is like from an actual report from the city of Vancouver. So the average, or from something, the city of Vancouver's later on. The average carbon absorbed from like a tree is 25 kilograms. And again, very much an estimation. We have a bunch of different species of trees here. And so we can see that roughly the amount of carbon absorbed per scene, per picture, is about 713 kilograms. Cool. Okay, so now we can roughly extrapolate over a city. So the total size of a pixel or of an image is just going to be like, I just took the RGB image because that's what we had stored, but I'm just looking at like the total size. This is going to be 3,000 by 4,000 times 3, so I'm just going to divide by 3 just to get 3,000 times 4,000. I'm looking at the average ground sampling distance here. On average, they're taken the images are taken roughly around 80 meters above the ground, but this is the average ground sampling distance. Yeah, so from that. I could have just done over 80 meters, but I'm just going to be a little more pointed at here. And then the next thing we need to know is like how much area does a picture cover on the ground? The technical term for this is a footprint. There's a lot of ways to do this, but like since it's pretty much pointed exactly down and it's a rectangle, we can just say how many pixels are there and what's the ground sampling distance. So like what's the resolution of it? Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Thank you. Hey, you guys can submit pull requests if you like to my personal repo. Cool. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, hold on. I must have done this something else. I think I probably need average ground sampling distance here too, right? Yeah. Look at that. Thank you. Cool. This doesn't actually affect anything too much, but thank you. I really, really appreciate that. Okay, so here we see that the average footprint, so the average area covered is, I don't know, 5,000-ish meters squared. And then the average ground sampling distance is about 2-ish centimeters. So that means the resolution of a pixel is about 2.2 centimeters, 2.3 centimeters. This is just a fact from Wikipedia, because I don't know how much area Vancouver covers, but roughly that many kilometers squared. So knowing that, you can roughly estimate the number of scenes, number of pictures it'll take to cover the city of Vancouver. The city of Vancouver is not like a rectangle, right? So it's like not going to be perfect, but this is good enough. And then you can kind of estimate the number, how much is absorbed by trees. So assuming roughly homogeneous coverage of trees, you can see that like the city of Vancouver is pretty well covered by tree for carbon capture. And like this number is going to change pretty dramatically if you change your kernel size, if you change the estimation of a tree, if you change a bunch of things. So this is just like a rough estimation, but you can see it's in the tens of percentage. To say that more clearly, Vancouver's trees absorb a good fraction of the carbon captured. And you can use just from an RGB image from like a drone you can buy at Best Buy, which is kind of cool. Right. Okay. So drawbacks, ton of them. So a lot of issues you guys have probably already thought about. Now it's very heavily dependent on time of day, right? And as people have mentioned, time of year, snow cover, like how are you going to do that? Lighting. Now another big thing is you've probably seen. Yeah, go ahead. Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, you're sounding. A lot of things you've seen probably as well is like, you can just kind of poke through these and be like, here's a problem, here's a problem. This one is like always stuck out to me and I found this to be really challenging to deal with is like shrubs. Shrubs like obviously don't absorb as much as trees do. And it's really hard to cut them out. Or grass. Probably doesn't do as much as trees do either. And if you want to measure the actual carbon capture of just trees, it's going to be a lot more complicated. So you can see it, like in this case, it said there are 50 trees, and like there obviously aren't 50 trees. There's probably I think like 12. So you can change different values to estimate those trees, or you can do different things to cut some of that stuff out, which was like a lot more complicated. But one thing you can do is you can measure the texture in a scene. By measuring like low texture, for instance, you can cut out stuff like grass. High texture, for instance, you might be able to cut out stuff like shrubs. You have to maybe get a little bit more intricate with it. You can try and cut out different things that are like have different shapes. So if you convolve with, let's say, like rectangular kernels, for instance, you might be able to cut stuff out like long-shaped items, for instance, shrubs. What else? Right, yeah, tons of stuff I assumed here. So again, this is just a rough estimate, but this gives you like a step in the right direction to measure carbon for a city. Any more questions on that, by the way?
What do you mean by texture? Like, what are some common approaches to measuring texture?
Yeah, so there's one called binary thresholding, I think. I think it's called binary thresholding. You should Google it. I initially had it in here to try and cut out grass, and it works well, but takes so long. And it takes even longer on Google Colab to work, so I just like got rid of it. But you can basically say how much texture you want in a certain image, and you can say like if it's over some threshold of texture being like a mathematical term in the sense, you can just turn them into zeros, or keep them if it's above a certain threshold.
Is like texture defined like high spatial resolution, or is it like I know that like in biology we use like Zernike polynomials a lot for texture,
Okay.
which are analogous to that. But like, how do you say this has more like it's more coarse grained versus fine?
Yeah. So I don't know what the method was, but I'm pretty sure it's something along the lines of like how much, what's the like standard deviation of like the noise or the texture of the values fluctuating in a certain kernel size. Yeah, there's probably a lot more sophisticated ways to do it. That sounds cool. I'm not sure what that means though. What?
Yeah, I don't know actually how to like call the Zernike polynomial function
Okay.
algorithm. I don't know what the details are.
Okay, cool. I want to try that for this too. You could try it for this actually. Yeah, cool. So the next question is, how could you contribute to doing this? Well, inserted ad for my company here. If you have your own drone, I always think this is such a funny video, but anyway, if you have your own drone, you can go ahead and do similar things. If you download our app on the store, you can actually go ahead and use your drone and then get paid for the imagery that you give to us. Yes?
I'll suggest that you also take a look at the map of no-fly zones around the city before you do that sort of.
Highly recommend. It's actually also integrated in the app. But yes, highly recommend. Do not fly near airports. Do not fly near prisons. All sorts of things. It will get shot down, probably. Yeah. Also, some people put like nets near their homes, for instance, and like they're hard to see on the cameras on your phone, and you just fly into it, and then you lost your drone. But basically, you just download this app. Okay. I'm not trying to like sell you on our company because I don't actually care. But if you're interested, you get your own drone, bring your own drone. You like kind of like press a button on like the app, and then it goes and flies the area. You give us the data, and then we just pay you $10 for doing the work, which is kind of cool. Those are like the little hexagons, by the way. Those little zones that have like that weird hash, like the 89 whatever FFF. Those like the H3 hash I was talking about earlier. And yeah. Yeah.
Do you also get access to any imagery you don't collect, or is there any way to get some of that?
Oh, I see. Okay, so I think the short answer is no. But I feel like so corporate. Contact sales. Really, but like the way it works right now is like the company's like a couple years old, right? So we don't have a formal sale or purchasing method. In an ideal world, you can just like drag and drop like an area of interest or whatever, and you'd be like, I want all the images from here over some time or whatever. That's not how it currently works. That would be cool. Yeah.
So I come from computer science background, expertise in like first of all computer vision as per se, and second of all like these sciences that go around detecting trees and stuff like that. So just from that point of view, how does these methods compare against kind of like you mentioned in the beginning we are not using machine learning models, but how do these methods compare against those models as per se? One I can think of that it seems to be pretty fast, but there are a lot of limitations. But on the other hand, again, that's my assumption that machine learning models might be a lot slower, but some of these limitations might get handled over them. So how do these two methods compare? That's question number one.
Yeah.
Another question that I have is like, this was for tree cover, right? And obviously this is in itself is very nuanced and a lot more specialities and things that you mentioned like snow covers, covers of trees are over there. So for someone with my background,
Yeah.
who wants to get in these kinds of field, like, but I don't have like that expertise, right? Like to build like the pipeline with the science that is there. What do you recommend? How do you go about
Okay. First question. Sorry, what's the
machine learning?
machine learning? Got it. Okay. I wrote this on a weekend, like kind of at night after putting my kids to bed. Like 4 hours of effort for most of this. I mean, not to say like I didn't like to spend time doing this, but like I did this really quickly, with like just I have knowledge in this stuff, but I didn't spend like a ton of effort doing this. Machine learning models would take months to build, to do accurately. You can kind of do this on the weekend. And this gets like, I don't know, 80% right, 70% right, whatever. Or you can get like 95% right with machine learning models that takes you like months to like build, annotate models, train, retrain, measure statistics. You can like, it's really a balance, right? Like you can get something that's like 70% right on a weekend, or like, I don't know, 90% right, but costs you tens of thousands of dollars to do, or maybe more.
That's a trade-off between like the personal project and the corporate project, right? Like
Mhm.
you want to, so do you add spexy, if I call that correct?
Yep, yeah, that's right.
Do you use something like this, maybe productionize and like this, or do you use like machine learning model to attain that 95% accuracy or like an 85% accuracy? Because at the city level,
Hmm.
I don't know how relevant is this, but it seems to me like 85% accuracy is good enough.
Yeah, some people are okay with this, and some people want like that's a fir, that's a cedar, that's a maple tree. People want that sort of granularity. It's just all about what you care about. So we have models that say, you have 13 firs, 1 cedar, and 1 maple tree in this scene, and points it out to you. Or you can also say like, this has roughly 14 trees in it, and gives you an idea of roughly where the trees are. It all depends what you care about. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, right. So for that, I mean, the problem with the internet is like there are so many resources that I find I get overwhelmed, and I find like it's really hard to just sift through all the stuff that's important. So like it sounds stupid, but like asking ChatGPT as like your robot assistant is like a really good tool. For instance, like some of this, like for instance, I tried different methods for this image processing pipeline, like texture, for instance, that I didn't know how to do. So I just like, I don't know, asked ChatGPT, or I like Googled a bunch of stuff, and I just sort of like, a lot of this is sort of creative work. Like, oh, okay, how do I get rid of grass? Grass kind of looks smooth in this image. Like, what if I use if I like Google, like ChatGPT, OpenCV, like, how do I remove things with low texture in an image? And it gives me some ideas, and I Google around. A lot of it is sort of like, an art in a way. I mean, there are definitely people out there who are super well versed at like have a much more methodical way of doing things. But you can kind of just like look at a lot of pictures and like come up with ideas in your head. You know, like you don't have to be an image processing engineer to do this sort of stuff. You can just pretend, fake it until you make it. Yeah. But like to answer your first question, like a lot of people like care about AI and machine learning and deep learning and all this sort of stuff, like those flashy words. Like you can get so much done with just like simple math, which is like what my takeaway is here is like, go pick up a drone from Marketplace for $300, and you do this like simple arithmetic, and you can do like some serious science with it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so we do a lot. So something that we've been contracted out to do by some cities. So I live 3 hours north of here in Canada, and we have a lot of wildfires in the summer. And an issue is we get there's a lot of stuff that burns that just never gets dealt with. So the city of there's a city close to us. I don't know if I can say it. So there's a city close to us that contracted us out to build a machine learning model to try and say what in a scene is flammable. Yeah. So yeah, and we also don't take pictures just at 90 degrees. We also take pictures in like different angles as well. So training a model again, like on different perspectives is really difficult. Whereas like you can use this exact same thing with different different like gimbal pitch angles. You'll have to be a little bit more creative with your kernel size filters. Like you can, something I've done in the past is like you can say like with the change of pixel rows, like from bottom to top, you can have like the ground sampling distance change from like, I don't know, a few centimeters to hundreds of meters or tens of meters per pixel, just from the perspective, right? Like if you look, it's kind of hard, I can't look top down, but like if you were to, oh, let me show you. Here. So if you were to look down here, these pixels down here are like probably going to be encapsulating like a couple, 50 centimeters per pixel, whereas the tops of these mountains are probably going to be within just a couple pixels. That's probably dozens of meters per pixel. So what you can do is you can say like as you go row and row up, you can like get larger and larger kernel sizes to convolve with. Yeah. Also my neighborhood. Welcome to my house. Yeah. Any more questions, or you guys want to get some snacks? Or
Those alternate views, alternate.
yeah.
Like, are you able to stack those then? Like, does it go back to like what we were talking about there, where multiple samples of pixelated red, green, blue channels, right? Do you have methods then of
Yeah. So there's in the field of photogrammetry, you can what you're describing are called tie points. So you say like a certain cluster of pixels is associated with another cluster of pixels in a different area in the image. All done, again, without machine learning. It's just with math. You can build it yourself or you can buy it. A lot of people try to build it themselves and then buy it. Because it's really hard. It's like really, really hard. And the key to doing that is having similar pictures with a lot of overlap. So if you, like, let's say have like 20% overlap, like if you have one picture here and one picture here, and they overlap like 20% like this, then you can get like in these sorts of images like thousands or tens of thousands of tie points, points that we know are associated with one another. Yeah.
But that's clusters of pixels, not necessarily.
It can be like clusters of 4 pixels, right, out of like millions, 12 million pixels. Yeah, and different perspectives. You know, it could be like 90, 60, and 30 degrees, which is like what we do for our pictures. And we can associate clusters of pixels between the 90, 60, and 30 because the field of view is so large. It's like, like horizontally, it's like 84 degrees. Like they're really incredible, and like 60 or 70 degrees this way, vertically. So you can get a lot of overlap. And what we do is hold on, let this thing do its thing. I wish I could stop it, but I can't. Whatever. We go to these like hexagonal zones, and then we take images at each vertice. So like we go to each vertex, and then we take picture going down 60 degrees and 30 degrees, and then we rotate by like, I don't know, 45 degrees and do the same thing. And then we point down, take a picture down, and then you can do other things in photogrammetry called like panoramas. Like, you know, on your phone when you like take a, if anyone has an iPhone, you can take like panorama mode like that. You can stitch them all together like that and do some really cool things. I mean, this is like going way above, but then like you can like go and import that into like a special software and then like have like a draggable element where you can see 3D or 360 degrees of like a single point. Yeah. Maybe next year I'll do that. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Hey.
Just curious, like, what types of things are people doing with this drone imagery, not related to trees, and what, like, vision do you guys have, what it could be used for, what you have for?
Yeah. Okay. So, the company vision is very different than like maybe like someone else's vision, but like the company is focusing on selling to cities for stuff like roads. I can't think of the word. Is urban planning. Thank you. That's what you do.
We use it for bridge inspection, so determining how much paint is chipped off, how much rust is available on the bridge, how much wear is on the deck. A lot of companies come up and try bands with infrared imagery. They don't use drones, they use infrared imagery to detect what kind of cracks and such are in the pavement, what kind of stress is on the pavement, which is kind of where you're going.
There you go. I'm just gonna pull up our website. A big old plug for the company now. Yeah, like this. So like you can train machine learning models to do this sort of stuff, like drive fuel, like I mentioned earlier. You can look for exactly what you mentioned in the bridges. You can look for like different delivery methods. This is all just like stuff that cities and like big corporations like care about. Yeah, and then like you can get really into like the augmented reality sort of stuff. This is like what I was talking about earlier. Yeah. This is not actually not exactly what I was talking about earlier, but this is like another method that we can use. It's kind of cool. And then yeah, you can pretty much do anything like your heart desires with this imagery. This forest thing was like just a personal project, but yeah, you can. Yeah, it gets really fun when you get creative with it. Is like my answer. Yeah, but like the main focus right now is like looking at sort of cities and emergency response. Like there was a big wildfire in the city of Kelowna, BC last year, and then afterwards, insurance companies came and asked us to image areas for insurance claims, for example. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
AWS, like, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they did one also with Esri where they plotted all of the mailboxes or fire hydrants or something like that on the streets. They just plotted them all.
Mm-hmm.
Which I assume they could have done very similar to what you did, which is identify it by filtering.
Yeah. Let's see if I can pull up this. I'm gonna just look down here. How do I pull this down? This way? All right. I guess we'll do this live. I guess. Wow, I cannot read that. Oh my goodness. Okay. No, that's not gonna work. What if I go? No. No. Wow, this is so difficult. Data download project. Is this it? No. Data? No. Alright, well, I was gonna try and show you something. I don't know. I was gonna try and show you the thing I was talking about, but I just don't know how to find that on this big screen. But yeah, we use this thing called like, what is it? Oh my god. I straight up don't know. Oh, look at this. We're big words. Marzipano. So you can like drag and drop tool. Here we go. Like your stitch panorama in here. I may as well just do this for you because this is kind of cool. And it's almost snack time. Where's my mouse? Is it up? Sideways? Hold on. I'm just gonna do this another way. By the way, please feel free to leave if you'd like. I'm just gonna show you some cool stuff. That's not related to this presentation. All right, I found it. Try and open this again. Here we go. Nope, nope, this way, nope, not this way. Can I do this? Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna mirror another way. Wow. Just kidding. I'm just gonna do this way. Sorry, this is very painful, I bet, to watch. Mirror, please. Is everyone staying for SciPy like other days? Yeah? Very cool. Here we go. Mirror, mirror. Good stuff. Where did Marzipano go? Over here. Nope. Ah. I'm just going to bring this over here. Let me see if I can get some good data for you. Not bad data. Good data? Hey, good data. Cool. So when you take all these images and stitch them together and throw them into this thing, you can like do some pretty cool stuff. This is 119 images stitched together using those tie points I was mentioning earlier. And yeah, you can get this like 360-degree field of view. It's pretty cool and it's really zoomable. Like there's like a bunch of different. Are people familiar with tiles? Yeah, sort of like it's a bunch of like pictures stitched together. Each tile has like a 4K resolution. This is like a low res version to show you guys, but like you can like zoom in down to that like couple centimeter resolution. I should mention the couple centimeter resolution is when you point downwards. Like I mentioned earlier, as you scroll up, your resolution, your ground sampling distance gets larger. Yeah.
On that, and I apologize, I Is it more of an art, or is there a nice little formula for your angle at what you should set your drill size to? Or, and you probably went over that, and I probably just kind of missed it.
Yeah, the answer is I think it's more of an art. I tried to standardize it like throughout the whole thing to just be like, when you point downwards, a tree is going to be about 10 meters, which is about this many pixels, and like try and convolve to about the size of a tree, or about the square root of the size of the tree to be a square pixel. The answer is like, that works well for this, and it might not work well for other scenarios. Like, it's more of an art, and like, as you can see, like the tree here appears larger, right? So there's more pixels here. The same size tree is going to be like a few pixels this direction. Also, it's like up, down, right? So your kernel size will have to change with perspective. Yeah. Yeah.
And did you ever get any interns from out Cal trees and verify your?
No. All manually. Yeah. Manually being myself at my bed at night.
That's why you have kids.
Yeah. Yeah. My 2-year-old tried and then just was poking my screen really hard because she thinks everything's an iPad. So it's very not fun. For me, at least. And then, I mean, things we didn't talk about, like lens flare and this sort of stuff. This gets extra complicated, but yeah. Yeah.
And kind of piggyback on what you said, do you really honestly get a lot of people who are feeling like, well, we simply don't really need the exactitude of machine learning, so the more artistic or the more, this way is because it's faster is just really good for us. And I assume so, given what you're talking about with fires. For my world, my engineers would just throw this in the trash can the minute I started talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank you, like, no, thank you.
Yeah,
They
for sure.
want exacting, down to the.
Yeah, I mean, so the answer is like, I'm not sure I can tell you, because I don't know if I can speak on like company customers, but some customers are okay with estimation, and some customers, yeah, really want specific, this is the species of tree we're looking at. And yeah, I mean, this code isn't pretty. This code is a weekend project. But like, you can do a slightly more sophisticated version of this in like a week, and then productionize it and like optimize it, and it works pretty darn well. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and again, like people coming from like the remote sensing world with calibrated sensors on telescopes or on satellites. This is like a really crude approximation. You might be like kind of like cringing looking at this, but this is like a pretty good first step. Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for the cost.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so tasking a satellite is expensive, but then you can like go into archives of satellite and like grab data, and each picture can still be in the few hundreds of dollars, whereas this drone costs $500, I think, brand new. Yeah, so it's all about like your scalability and like what you care to spend. Some places will just spend tens of thousands of dollars on a data set for like one season, right? But if you want like seasonality changes, if you want higher temporal resolution, it gets to be like extremely expensive with satellite imagery, and also like aerial imagery on helicopters or airplanes. You can do this for like a very small fraction of the price. And like the way we do this, if you guys care, this is the company I work for, by the way. All these blue squares or hexagons have been imaged. All the yellow ones have yet to be imaged. So like people download this app or go here or whatever, and then they'll look and be like, ooh, I live close to here. Click. Okay.
Why do they do it as hexagon?
Why? The The answer is like math. You can more simply split up a sphere with hexagons than squares or circles.
It's like a sucker ball, right? It's not special.
Yeah, it actually gets even a little bit more complicated because the Earth is kind of a squished sphere. So there are some points where it doesn't actually perfectly add up. So there are different sizes of these hexagons. There's different levels. So you have to do like a bunch of like smaller ones in some areas. But yeah, it's the details of this. The people at Uber, their engineering team built this whole H3 thing. It's kind of cool. But yeah, you go ahead and you click this. It's like $5. Cool, I'll go and fly it, and then you get $5, and then you just get your data. And then this is like, we also have it in Seattle, San Francisco, I mean. And so like, you go ahead and like, there's thousands of dollars just sitting here. And when you have your drone, you enjoy flying, like, just go outside and make a few $100 a day. And yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, I can't fly because I work for the company, but I would. Yeah.
Some QA step where, you know, if I submit a bunch of crudely taken pictures that don't stitch together nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have this whole backend system called proof of capture that does a lot of that stuff. It literally validates the proof of your capture, including like looking for image quality as well. So like if you've taken it on like a day where the sun was like a really low angle, it creates really long shadows, like it gets denied and you don't get your $5 or $10, whatever it is. Yeah. Yeah, so if anyone lives in Austin, Seattle, or Vancouver, there are still zones available. I mean, not Seattle, San Francisco. Anyway, yeah. But it's pretty cool. Yeah, you can go and find all these different spots on Earth with these different hash names. Well, that's embarrassing. Error fetching. There we go. Yeah, each spot on Earth has their own like little H3 hash. Kind of cool. Anyway, this presentation's been done for a while. If you guys want to move on, you can move on, or we can still chat about this as much as you like. I think, yeah.
Just myself.
All good.
So, 1.9, go back to this, you had estimated something based on your focal length. You have to have some reference point. Like, if I want to know how big a crack in the street was, I would really kind of want to know how wide the street was to use the focal length, and based on your optics from that, then I can calculate the crack, right?
Yes.
I need something like that, obviously.
Yeah. So what you want is like how much a pixel covers the ground.
So can I get that from, I apologize, I'm not good.
No, it's okay.
The cone,
Y-
what the image is taking in its actual square footage based on its height?
Yeah, so,
Or
yeah,
it's triangle, you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Trigonometry going on with how,
Oops.
angle of the y, lens angle? Lens or what?
So you want, yeah, I know, there's, it's right here, hold on. You need a few things. So you need the altitude, basically the size of the actual pixel on your camera, which you can just Google, pretty much almost every camera, you know the pixel pitch, and the focal length.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this altitude number, by the way, is like the distance between the camera and like whatever you're imaging.
And then
So,
around, not the above, you know.
so like if your bridge is above the sea, then like you want to know the distance between the bridge and the camera.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. Also, these are all public, so like keep them, clone them,
Yeah,
whatever you
never
want to
turn
do.
that down.
Sorry?
Never take that down.
Yeah, I won't.
Share PowerPoint out there.
No.
Yeah, that would be nice,
Yeah, I could.
super nice.
Where should I put it? I don't know.
How about on like GitHub?
All right.
I've got that bookmarked and.
Done.
I'm going to be, you know, the GIS team and our drone, I'll be like, hey, what are you talking about? That's what I saw, you know, and they'll be like, oh, good for you.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I'll throw it on the GitHub. Cool.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
I left the message in the Slack. I mixed up Zernike polynomials with
Okay.
Slack.
Is there a Slack channel for this?
Yeah. And
I was looking for it, like, I don't know.
Tutorials dash and then it's all the.
Okay, I meant to post all this stuff in there, and then I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, tutorial, hobby drones,
Okay.
urban.
No problem, see ya.
You're riding your bike back?
Yeah, I'm gonna take,
Awesome.
yeah, it's gonna be like a 4-day adventure.
Nice.
Yeah,
Are you
pumped.
are you taking like the trail, or what's the specific trail?
You know
Or are
what?
you just freewaying it?
I don't know is the answer. I can show you. I have like a.
That is just too cool. My little brother used to do that. My younger brother.
So-
He's taller than I am.
So, the first day is like tomorrow, by the way. So from here to Port Gamble, I'm gonna sleep somewhere around here, and then the next day.
So wait a second.
Yeah,
Back
yeah,
up
yeah.
For a second.
By the way, this route,
So-
I'm very much not sure what the actual details of are. I know I'm going on and off Vashon Island.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
So
If you have any-
there's no. See, you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to both.
How many hours? Each day is going to be about 5 to 6 hours. It's going to be really hot next couple of days, so maybe less. I mean, maybe more.
I didn't even know we had a ferry that did this.
I know it comes every half an hour or something.
Crazy.
Super frequent. Yeah.
I mean, I've been around this island, so
Yeah.
I was a boat driver for the Army Reserve.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we have a lot of boats around here, so we used to do this a lot.
Oh, cool.
I didn't even know we had so that's cool. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
up to Port Gamble. And
Yeah. By the way,
Banger.
if you have any suggestions on this route, I'm totally willing.
Um,
I don't know this at all. I'm like doing. So this is it split up from the ferries, by the way. So
Yeah.
this to this to this. Oh yeah, I'm sleeping here.
Nice. No, I don't have any suggestions other than if you go back, these highways.
Yeah.
have fun.
Okay, cool.
Good luck with riding in that ditch. You know, you're going to make a decision between the 1 foot of shoulder and the ditch.
Okay.
No, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. But
Okay.
they're not super heavily traveled, but
Yeah.
you know, there's enough people running up those roads that.
Yeah.
And where it gets really heavily trafficked, those shoulders.
Yeah.
Down a bit.
Like I have most of this planned. The part I'm actually excited for is this, like Victoria to Ladysmith. So this is like I've
Yeah.
done a lot of this before, and there's a lot of bike paths up until about here.
This is so much fun right there.
Yeah, for a boat.
Is it the ferry that runs through there? I believe it's the ferry that runs through there. And everyone fishes there.
Oh, cool.
And it's just cool because the tugs, everyone goes through that passage.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
tugs, the ferry, everyone goes through that passage, and they just don't care. Mostly it's the flotillas, the big flotillas that go up to Alaska, and they just don't care.
That's so fun.
Because you'll do more damage trying to stop that thing than to pay for the fishermen you run over. So it's, you know, the people out there like, oh my God, you're gonna, trying to start their boat to get out of the way, but yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Have a great time.
Yeah, thanks you too.
Merci beaucoup, Kevin.
Yeah. W.
I loved how that work speaks to the wildfire mapping.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not surveillance, but something. English is
That's it. By the way, so my family is all from France, and
from France.
and yeah, and my parents grew up speaking to me in French,
Uh-huh.
and I always responded in English because I grew up in Canada. So if you want to speak to me in French, you totally can. My speaking is so slow, and I have to think about it so much.
Don't worry about it. The thing I wanted to point out is I love the idea of looking for forest cover
Mhm.
using other things than satellite, because you're right.
Yeah.
It's Steve Dutcher who's here who does these presentations about watching, so doing a sort of post-fire rather than tracking the fires themselves, but he tracks the particulates in the
Oh
atmosphere.
yeah.
And he tries to distinguish particulate clouds from, just clouds.
Yes. That's yeah. Yeah.
Tricky.
It's very tricky. Yeah. I used to work at Planet Labs.
Uh-huh.
It's like a satellite image company. I used to work there, and that was like one of our. We did a lot of that stuff.
Right.
Really hard. Yeah.
The thing is, so Steve does it by labeling lots of data,
Okay.
right? Has people eyeballing.
Yeah.
spots of clouds and trying to, you know,
Yeah.
he's trying to capture expert eyeball analysis.
Yeah, yeah.
In label sets, but doing it, so obviously you're not flying a drone nearly high enough to be looking at cloud cover.
Yeah.
But at the altitudes you're flying, so we're talking a few tens of meters off the ground.
Yeah.
Do you already see some, or are there effects from rarefication of atmosphere yet, or it's still
No,
too low?
it's so low.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even realize how low 80 meters really was. 80 meters is our standard, by the way.
It's enough to break both legs.
Oh yeah, yeah, yes. But some high-rise buildings are taller than we fly. So yeah, you can really do much. The thing is, there are a few reasons we chose 80 meters as a standard height, but like it's high enough to have super high resolution data, but low enough to have super high resolution data, but high enough to like blur people's faces out, without doing machine learning to find faces and blur them. Yeah, but like so these drones, I think they can legally. I'm not sure about in the U.S. In Canada, you can legally fly up to 500 meters.
Okay.
Super high.
Okay. Without notifying
Exactly.
the equivalent of FAA.
Yeah, exactly. The you have to be careful. Some planes fly pretty low, especially where I live near the sea.
Yep.
But yeah, you can get some like incredible imagery still at 500 meters. Like if you, what is this? Like 500 times 0.025 divided by, what was it, 6 centimeters? I don't remember what it was.
So,
Divided by 100. Is that right? Was it 6? I don't remember what it was. But yeah, you can still get like, or is it divided by 10? Whatever. You can still get a few meters per pixel resolution at that height. It's like really, really impressive. Yeah.
so I'm a recovering image engineer.
Oh, cool.
So what I used to do is image reconstruction for medical
Oh, whoa.
imaging.
Cool.
And so I'm very interested in the phenomena that noise up or blur up the data,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, so, okay, let's say you're taking imaging from 0 degree,
Mhm.
like normal to ground.
Yes.
Still, you're being buffeted by wind, right?
I know. Yeah.
So you have a jitter
Yeah.
to your normalness.
Yeah.
Do you have detection for that? Do you have metadata that you can use, or you can't rely on it?
So
well?
the answer is like there's no metadata on it, but these drones are, as much as I like to talk down on their firmware, they're super good at being stabilized. And then
Even in wind?
well, I can't remember what you can fly. It's like DJI Mini 3 wind resistance. So you can fly at like 30 kilometers per hour wind, like still pretty fast.
Okay.
So it'll give you a warning, a wind warning. It'll say no wind, little wind, or too much wind,
Right.
basically. And yeah, you can fly with pretty like so. And the wind's not the hard part because it'll just kind of do this and stay
Mhm.
there. The gust is the hard part where it does this.
Oh, okay. Oh, and there is a level in
It'll
the unit so that it just
yeah.
refocuses the
So-
camera.
Exactly. Like it has a really
Oh, that's
good
smart.
gimbal. So it's really good and like with some low frequency jitter, like if it does this, it can move it
Oh,
can
yeah, you
adjust
can,
pretty well.
Kalman filter out of this.
Not even need to.
yeah?
You can just the gimbal itself will stay.
Okay.
It's really good. I was gonna bring up Kalman filtering, but I was like that was probably too much for this.
You had a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's tricky to
Yeah, but the high frequency stuff, like the high frequency jitter is you just get noise and it's
Right.
just unfortunate. I mean the only thing you can do is you can just do a higher frame rate, like a lower exposure time,
yeah.
and that's as much as you can do, and then you just get you know, less light in, so it might just be not enough.
Mhm.
Yeah, the SDK that we interact with the drones is pretty limiting, so it's like not so much we can do. But what's nice is like if anyone picks up this drone, we know what to expect from their camera. It's
Yeah.
like very,
So you have a very good envelope of their optical
Oh, yeah.
accuracy and reliability.
exactly. It's really, really reliable.
Neato.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you once again.
Yeah, no, thank you. Are you from Quebec?
Yeah.
I can tell from your accent. where in Quebec are you from?
I grew up in a farming place called Drummondville. It's about halfway between Montreal and Quebec City.
I know Drummondville, yeah.
And now I live in Ottawa.
Okay.
I work at federal government, so the TUD Institute is a research
Okay.
department within an organization called the Communication Security Establishment.
Okay.
And it has roles in foreign intelligence and cyber defense.
Ooh, cool. Wow.
So think a bit like NSA, but not quite, and having not infringed on its mandate as
Right.
badly.
That's cool. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I was born in Pointe-Claire,
Oui.
and I lived there for 3 years.
Okay.
And then my brother moved back we moved to Ontario,
Uh-huh.
and then my brother moved back.
He's on the West Island.
No, he lives in he lives in Quebec. So he lives in Montreal. Do you know neighborhoods in Montreal? Well,
Yeah.
he lives in where is it? On the plateau, something like that.
Yeah.
The-
Plateau Mont-Royal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah. And it's such a nice neighborhood. It's there are so many like French people who live there.
Yes.
I'm
It's
so
French country. It's
it's-
funny because
It's so surprising.
my wife's best friend is also a French expat.
Yeah.
And where she lives in Gatineau,
Yep.
she dislikes it because she says, "Oh, it's not artsy enough." And I'm like, "Oh man, the French and the call of the plateau."
I know. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. Cool. Well, let's go get some snacks. Let me see. Did I leave anything? My water bottle inside. Cool. This is so funny. You've been to other SciPys before?
Yeah.
This is our time. So